Thank you so much for joining us here. It's a real honor. We've got some serious credentials and talent on the panel tonight. I'm a massive fan, so I really appreciate you guys making the time out to come here and join us. So we're here to talk about new technology in hip hop, but to kick off, I really wanted to just kind of take it back to, you know, for example, how I got inspired and how I'm sure many people got inspired to get into music making and hip hop for this particular panel. You know, for me, it was like records like the Organized Confusion stuff and Tribe and just the art of sampling. And for me to kind of hear somebody else's track or a part of somebody else's track as an instrument on another song, and the creative kind of juices start to flow about how you do that. You know, that's what really got me into figuring out like how somebody went about doing that and going to the MPCs and all that kind of stuff. What was it for you guys? I mean, Che, I mean, you know, you've worked with some of the top artists in the world and in hip hop in particular. What is it for you that kind of triggered that passion for it and got you going?
Like a lot of people that get into hip hop, and I'm older than everyone here, so it was still turntables and vinyl. So as a kid, it started with turntables and vinyl, and I was fortunate that I had parents that introduced me to instruments as well. So I think I always had a curiosity, and then, you know, you get into I started out, I think one of the albums that really impacted me was KRS-One, Criminal Minded. And then I started dissecting, okay, the Beatles were sampled in there, you know, and you start like piecing it together and like, where are these drums coming from? Okay, and then, you know, later on in life, you know, you hear the stories from DiViNci where he borrowed a beat machine from Set G, and it's like, so it almost started being like a mystery, and unraveling the mystery, you know, going to the music store, being that curious kid going to the music store and being like, what's this do? What's this do? You know what I mean? And really learning it, and then, you know, and that just progressed, and until to an obsession, you know.
I mean, I know Dready's back in the UK, you were smashing it with on the sample tip, but also like creatively doing that. You were stacking crazy samples on the kick, and then doing nut stuff in the garage music scene, and ported that over to, you know, how you messed with the hip hop stuff since you moved over to the States. What was it for you? What triggered that?
I have no idea. All I remember, my story is similar to Che. Like, my dad's a live sound engineer. So we'd always go to the music store, and I'd just get the equipment for nothing. For like, they just loan it me for like 7 days. And that's how I'd learn. And I think the first machine I learned was probably the 808. So I learned how to use that, and then I'd just give it back. And then they gave me like, what's the other one? A Dr. Rhythm or some old shit like that. Yeah, the DR, all those old stuff. So I just learned from there. But in terms of where I heard it first, like technology, because I'm from a reggae, dancehall, hip-hop background, so in terms of electronic would probably have to be like King Jammies in the 80s. That's where I first heard the electronic music. And then, I don't know if anyone's familiar with the Slang Tang rhythm, but that was a Casio preset. It was a rock preset slowed down and became one of the biggest dancehall rhythms ever. So I remember having that keyboard. And yeah, I think it started from there, and then I got more into stuff like Public Enemy, and I wondered how they did that. And then I found out later in life that's jam sessions and stuff like that, and they just sample their own jam session. So, I mean, we could go on forever.
It's just all kind of ingredients.
Yeah, all kind of ingredients. It's all a mesh.
Speaking of which, like DiViNCi did an awesome performance here at the booth yesterday, and I'm hoping we can get you back on later. Now, your music, and particularly seeing you perform, you use a crazy combination of slightly longer samples when you trigger that thing, and then you kind of have to seriously be on time. But then on top of that, you're doing some very like expressive Eastern stuff. I'm really curious to hear like what sent you down that path, considering you're into hip hop, but then there's all sorts of other influences there as well.
Well, before I wanted to do any type of music, I wanted to be an inventor. And music itself didn't interest me as much until I heard hip hop, because I could reverse engineer everything else. You know, I'd see a hair metal band when I growing up, and I'd say, okay, that's guitar, that's bass. Even if I'm not seeing a video, I can hear that's drums, that's bass, that's a guitar. Nothing was a mystery until I started hearing hip hop music, and then I was like, whoa, what the hell are they doing there? What's what's that metalish type of sound? Like, it sounds like Metal Dragon or something, or a chain or something, and that doesn't even sound like human, like a human would play it. That sounds kind of like an animal, like, and then and it's got all this weird, it's covered in all this record noise and everything like that. And back then, my ignorance was probably one of my greatest leaders as far as where it led me, because here I was hearing this like chain sound, and I was thinking that they actually like sampled a chain dragging across the floor, or shaking it or something. Later I found out it was probably just the rapper's necklace as he was rapping, but that was the fun part, because that sent me
I actually
on a
sampled
path.
chains.
Right. But that's what I was thinking everyone was doing. So that sent me down a path of like trying to re-engineer these things that I was mentally, ignorantly reverse engineering, and made me really creative in a way that I thought everyone else was being. So that's what kind of really piqued my interest for it, was just the fact like it was like a magic trick.
Yeah.
And it still is, because technology now is moving so fast that you could listen to any piece of music and be like, okay, I think I know how they did that, but they could have did it a completely different way.
It's interesting, and first, I know you've been doing a lot of stuff with people like 2 Chainz and Iggy Azalea, and the credits go on. But nowadays, it seems like there's a lot of critique flying around about everything kind of sounds the same and whatever, and a lot of people are trying to make music that sounds like the next thing. And I know Che and other guys get that all the time, like this is the next whatever. How do you keep your stuff fresh in a world right now, which is really kind of looking for, a 10-second wow factor, and then people are changing the radio station straight away? Like, how do you keep your stuff fresh with technology today? How does that help you?
Really, to stay fresh, really in music, I feel like the younger kids always know what to do. You know what I mean? So I always just keep the youngins around me, man. Keep the youngins around me, and really just like other great producers, just linking up with them, just trading sounds. You know what I mean? Just staying in the loop, man.
It's hard though, man. I play my stuff to my sister. She's like, "That's whack."
That's good. that's an industry secret right there. A lot of people do that. A lot of people keep young people around.
Right. And randomly, like, cause I have a 3-year-old son. Right. If he doesn't dance to it, it doesn't mean it's not a hit or not, but the way he moves to it, I'm like, oh, he might like this, man. Like, everybody might like this, because he's not judging. It's just, he's unbiased. So, hey, I guess a 3-year-old. And just the youngest, man, just staying fresh like that.
I did another interview recently, and the same thing. Someone asked me, like, how do you stay relevant after being in the business so long? And it's the kids. You know what I mean? I'm fortunate I have a 17-year-old and a 14-year-old that are super into music. They keep me relevant. I keep, like he said, I keep a lot of the youngins around me. You know what I mean? And I pass my wisdom down to them in terms of making a better song. They keep me fresh in terms of, okay, what are the textures that these kids are really feeling? You know what I mean? He's one of them. You know? And one thing I have to say about him is I know all the young producers. Like I work with kids who don't even know anything about music at all to the kids that are established, to the Metro Boomins and all those. You know what I mean? Like I know Metro when he was, Baby Metro, but what impressed me, I came into the studio to see First one day. I was over there with Post, and he had a C-board, and he had a ROLI. You know what I mean? That was very impressive to see in this generation. Yeah. You know what I mean? In this laptop mouse generation, he had a ROLI. That alone was telling me a lot about him. You know what I mean? Even before I got to know him more.
Yeah, that's cool, man. I mean, at ROLI, what we've been trying to do is really put that expression and that creativity back at your fingertips with an electronic instrument. And, it's something that we'll definitely get onto in a second. But I didn't just leave Trevor last on the first round just for the sake of it. I actually had a specific question for you, Trevor, because we've been talking about so far, the things that got us going, and there's some old records that we mentioned, the kind of art of sampling and all that stuff. Now, you do a lot of live work as well. You work with a lot of people who are putting around shows around the world, not just in hip-hop, but also, you were mentioning earlier, you got some country stuff going on in the UK. How do you take something which, like DiViNCi was saying, sounds like drag chains across the floor, and take a sample which is so unique and distinct on the record and MD that for a live show? Like, how do you convert technology into like that analog experience while still staying relevant?
Well, it all depends on the situation. I mean, obviously, you know, a lot of times there's tracks being played, you know what I'm saying, with shows. So like this particular thing I'm doing now, they use Digital Performer. You know, that's a country situation, a girl by the name of, artist by the name of Leanne Rhymes. We use Digital Performer with that. But, you know, there's been plenty of tours with, you know, Pro Tools, or, you know, some even use Ableton. And the whole thing is just like in the studio, it's about what's going to translate, you know what I mean? So sometimes we have the choice of what do we want on the tracks, you know what I mean? Like, what do I want to replicate live? What do I want on the tracks? And it's all about what's going to translate. Just like in the studio, you know what I'm saying? I mean, Che and I and Dready, I don't know anybody else maybe, but we all come through the Dre school at some point too. Worked a lot with Dr. Dre. And, you know, it's a lot of experimenting, man. We experiment, and we hoping to have that record button on at the right time. You know, that's the game. That's what we're doing. We're setting up the energy, setting up the mood, and thank goodness a lot of times the record button is capturing these moments that don't get replicated ever again in life, and then they can live on. You know what I'm saying? So it's the same philosophy. It's about what's going to translate, and I try to take the authenticity of the record, whatever it is. In the studio, if I got to replay a loop, I'm really trying to, if I don't offhand know what it was that made it, I want to learn, try to do some research on the song maybe, and really try to get those sounds exactly as I can. That's the same way it is live. You know what I mean? I'm not going to take a drum set that I'm going to play with Herbie Hancock out with Leanne Rhymes. It's a different sound.
Right,
you know what I'm
saying?
Keep
it kind of unique to that
so
experience.
it's about authenticity. And to speak on what they said about the kids, you have to have the kids and the young generation around, but the other key to the magic is that everybody on this panel has, you got to want to listen to the kids. So you got to have the ego out. That's real important.
Kind of got to keep it humble and hear what's going on.
Oh, you don't like that? Okay, let me not get offended and turn into a hater. You got to have no ego. Your ego's not your amigo.
I remember that one. Ego's not your amigo. Now, Che, we did some work together before at Native Instruments when you're working on Machine, and you know you've been checking out some of the stuff that ROLI have been doing. You're definitely somebody who wants to know what's happening in the technology world when it comes to music and how that can apply to what you're up to. I mean, how do you feel like this new wave of kind of going back to the roots of musicality and expression is changing the way that hip-hop producers are making music?
Well, it was exactly like what you were talking about first. Like, how does he differentiate himself from the whole crop of young producers and things of that nature? And when you have products like what ROLI is creating that adds that expression and adds these things that you can really customize what you're doing, and no one can duplicate that. You know what I mean? It's really hard for someone to duplicate what I did on a ROLI, and with manipulating a sound and adding that with a sample chopped into it and doing that to really duplicate what I'm doing. So that they're really bringing back that individuality that you can bring to a record, you know what I mean, and the creativity. And so that brings back the musicality. But even the keyboard aside, you know, the pads, what you can do, the way you can manipulate sounds with the pads is very unique to ROLI, you know what I mean? You can't do that with any other product where you can grab and manipulate and program it with modulation and do the fill after it. You know, there's things you can do with it that you can't do.
Right. And that's something we wanted to put at the kind of fingertips of the creators. You know, we really refer to our kind of users as creators because we want to kind of trigger that spark that, like we were just talking about. You know, that we heard a record, or you heard some records in the record shop. Dready's like borrowing his dad's Doctor or whatever. I'm too young for that one, but we're trying to put that back in the hands of people. And I'm curious to hear from you first. Like, you know, you've been messing with some of our products, but just generally speaking, I mean, when it comes to leveraging that extra expression and sound libraries that can replicate almost any sound and, you know, meshing those things together, like, do you consciously do that in your music? Is it something that you're trying to leverage the technology, or is it you just kind of go with the music and those are the tools?
Really, with me, it's all about simplicity. So, really, it's just you gotta have a completely open mind, because you have, of course, listen to any types of music, but there's really no ceiling. There's really no barrier. You can put anything into a beat. Diplo has sent me a 3-second fart. No, for real. Like, and we made a beat out of it. Like, just as long as you have the tools that we're having, like you were saying, the ROLI and just Fruity Loops, just the way you can move through samples and move through different things, it's really all on you. You just can't have any limitations, and really, like I say, it's simplicity, man.
Yeah,
if
yeah.
I mean, you can make something simple great, then that's
what it is.
And I feel like that's where we are right now.
Yeah, I mean, FL Studio was definitely, like many people out here, like one of the first things I downloaded, of course, legally. You know what I'm saying? But legally.
Right.
But one of the problems that we're facing, just generally in music technology, is everyone's using different things. Now, for the multi-instrumentalists, I know Trevor comes in that category, but for people who are, who are down with like the analog gear, like that's cool because you play drums, you play bass, you play guitar. But one of the big problems we're facing is people who are using different DAWs, different VSTs and instruments, and like, how does that collaboration aspect kind of work for you, Dready? I know you work with other producers, you co-produce a lot as well.
Yeah. That's a good question. I mean, it all really depends, because with the new DAWs nowadays, it's easier to collaborate. Whereas, like, I mean, we was just talking in the back there, like, no matter what you're using, it's easy to collaborate. Like, Che used to chop bass on an MPC. Like, people only had MPC for drums. But, like, if you push it to the limit, you can collaborate with anyone with anything. And everything now is just a WAV file. So, like, you know what I'm saying? So, like, Trev will play drums on something, and Dre might take that and play it backwards. It just depends how creative you want to go and how far you want to take it. So, with me, I just, like First was saying, there's just no ceilings to it. You just go in there with a blank canvas and just let the vibes take over, basically, for collaborations. That's the best way.
I mean, go, Che.
I was gonna say, with the internet, there's just no limitations. Like I'm currently working with, I went to Korea, and there's a songwriter producer I work with out there. So we're doing stuff back and forth. He's in Korea with people, with people in the Scandinavian. I got writers and producers in Scandinavia, and I'll send someone a hook, and they'll write me back a top line and send it back. And I got another guy who's in Paris who'll do strings for me. So there's really no limitations unless you place it on yourself.
That's a really interesting point. I mean, we're talking about technology here, and it feels like it's music technology, hardware and software, but the internet's been a massive influence in all of this as well. And moving slightly off topic, I mean, hip hop is often referred to as more than just a music. It's a culture. So, I mean, Trevor, like, how have you seen technology influence hip hop as a culture? Where a lot of people have been calling it pop nowadays, which is like it's current, it's popular.
The technology has brought the ability to make music, first of all, way down price wise, right? So it's brought the ability to make music into far more households, right? And a lot of people that back in the day, in Che and I's time, you had to know somebody had a studio, you had a much bigger investment for your equipment. So if you had an idea and believed you had an idea, from, like some restaurants say, from farm to table, from that idea to a record was a much longer journey. Now you can literally have a laptop, you know what I'm saying? You can literally go to Best Buy, not even a bona fide music store, and you can literally just sit home and get everything on Amazon, have it delivered the next day, and make a record by that evening, and put it out to where it's at every digital store in the world in 3-4 days. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it's all under $5,000. It's like, it's unbelievable, right? Yeah, exactly, right? Yeah. Right, so it's like that just let the creativity of the world now be shown on a much broader level. You know what I'm saying?
I hear that. I mean,
all because of technology.
That's another interesting thing is that Che, I know you're COO of Good Music, Kanye's label, and DiViNCi, you're an artist who's constantly just creating and pushing stuff out as well on your own tip. I'm interested to hear from both of you, like, how you feel that point that Trevor made about somebody can just go and make a record in their bedroom with like a laptop and a mouse and maybe one piece of gear, and they're putting that out and they're gaining crazy followers and stuff, and you need to stay relevant because you need to be finding the next hottest thing. And DiViNCi, you're just like putting stuff out in volume, and you're like, do you even care about who's listening in terms of like the exec stuff, or are you just trying to put as much music out as possible and do you. Like, how does that how's that dynamic change from artist to like record executive?
I absolutely care because I have to put food in my mouth and my family's mouth. And besides that, I like that. The thing I like about music, the thing I like about teaching, the thing I like about life is it's a collaborative thing. And the thing that I did growing up in a small town in Pennsylvania, you know, for years was just, you know, I had my little hip hop crews and things like that that I would produce and be a part of. But there's a lot of time just spent by yourself in a kind of loop, you know, a personal loop, which is cool. It can teach you a lot, but I'm about the reciprocal energy. I like the idea that all this work that I'm doing, even if it's among other people who understand that personal work, like being on this couch right now is dope, because whether or not anyone's listening, I know that I'm around people who have spent years and years and thousands and tens of thousands of hours perfecting a craft that I've also been doing my best to perfect. And that sense of community is great to me. So that's the thing that I care about the most. Second to that, I absolutely need to eat. So and I like to eat. So so that's the ratio of me putting out music to food I eat is.
No, I mean you can put some stuff out and you know, people are messing with your stuff. You know, they want to hear that.
Well, I mean, to be honest though, I don't value my music as much as I do my interaction with people, or even if that interaction is just me performing. When I perform, I don't really think that everyone in the room likes my music. I think that everyone in the room is liking what I'm doing on some level, because I know for a fact that if I did it right, I'm making myself free in front of people. And I know other people like to see people free, you know. So
and that's hip hop.
That's, well, yeah. I mean, that's hopefully your goal in life, is to find that voice of yours and shout it, you know. And that's what I try to do when I'm performing. And because of that, I that's my priority.
I hear that. Jay, how do you keep an eye on these guys, man? There's so many of them.
I mean, but first I'm gonna touch upon what Trevor said. You know, technology has made music accessible, right? So obviously more people could put music out, you know, obviously TuneCore and SoundCloud and things like that, and YouTube. Obviously YouTube and MySpace were first. But in my world, you know, in good music, his shirt says it all. Good music will feed your soul. So all we try to do with good music is just make better music. You know what I mean? So just because a lot of people can put music out doesn't mean it's good. You know what I mean? So we're still looking for the diamonds. And then all, you know, and then we're able to, using Kanye's platform, using Def Jam's platform, illuminate that and put it on a higher pedestal. You know what I mean? And it gets just, you know, a bigger look. An example of that is Panda. Panda's a record that was already going to be what it was going to be. We put it on a pedestal. Now you have a #1 record. You know what I mean? Childish Gambino putting the Migos song on a bigger platform in the Golden Globes. Now you have a #1 record. You know what I mean? So I love the fact that SoundCloud levels the playing field. So now you have those people that didn't get opportunities can create opportunities for themselves. Because you could be in Belgium and put a song out. The next thing you know, that's a hot, you know, and you could crack the you could crack the code.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But you know, so it's great that, you know, and at the same time, money still makes a difference.
Of course.
If you have resources to digitally market it, to shoot visuals, to push a button, to, you know, because radio still costs.
I hear that.
You want to compete with Taylor Swift, you got to pay to play that game. So so that's why record labels people are like, why are record labels even exist anymore? Because that game is not, you know, radio is still one of the major ways that music is consumed. Internet and streaming, and then still terrestrial radio, because people still got to drive in their cars. People still got to be on the train or the bus. So the radio is still a big platform for breaking music.
For sure.
So.
I mean, I know we got to wrap up in a few minutes, but a couple more quick questions. Something really for first, Trevor and Dready. I mean, I'm interested. You guys are really at the forefront of things at the moment. I know you guys are working all day, all night. I'd love to know from your perspective. We talked a little bit about hip hop kind of being at the forefront of culture, like just modern culture at the moment. what is it going to take for that to be sustained, and what do you think the sound of that is, and what's the technology driving that right now moving forward?
Really, the way music is right now, and it's fast. So like you gotta be on your toes. You gotta be able to roll with the punches and be great and make good music, like he was saying. If you don't, there's 1,000 other people behind you ready to take your place. And luckily, we have, like he's saying, we have SoundCloud. We'll have about my friend Post Malone made about $2-3 million off of SoundCloud from just one day just uploading the song we made on there. So it's just like the possibilities are endless. And what was the input? It was the end of the question. I want to name it.
Yeah, so I'm kind of implying that, you know, hip hop is one of the kind of driving factors in modern music and culture, and it's something that's kind of transcended just music now. How do you think that will change, and if so, like, how do you think the music and the technology behind that will influence it?
Me personally, I think hip hop has always been at the forefront on culture and everything. It's just now we have streaming, so we have the proof in the numbers. Before the number, like, there was no way to tell. I feel like hip hop has always drove lingo, the way people talk, everything. Like, whether you're black, white, Asian, it doesn't matter. Like, I feel like hip hop has always done that. And
For
really,
real.
we just have to continue to just push the envelope, man. Just crazy genre collabs. Like, just keep that going. I feel like it's all about the collaborations, and you're always going to make something incredible if you stick with creative people. So, yeah.
What do you think, Trev?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. I mean, a lot of us, you know, we've been all over the world, so you get a chance to see other parts of the world. And I remember traveling on tour with Snoop at one point. You'll see a great-granddaughter up to the great-grandmother, no Snoop lyrics. You know what I mean? And that's in remote parts of Scandinavia or Eastern Europe. So it's definitely the world's thing. I mean, it's a world thing now. And hip-hop, to touch on what First said, 100% is a driving force with culture, you know what I'm saying, and lingo. And I personally think with the technology now, I don't think it's going anywhere. I think it's just the opposite. I think it's deeply rooted. It's going to be here. It's a benchmark. And I feel like the technology, I mean, even look at the blocks. Now I could be on a plane, you know what I mean, and do something. And a lot of planes got internet now. So we can be on a plane, send the track back to somebody else, say, yo, man, put this out. You might be able to get off the plane in Europe and your record's out that you made on the plane. Feel me? And that's real, that's fathomable stuff. That's real things that are possible. So I applaud ROLI, and I'm appreciative of y'all for pushing the envelope with some technologies and some things that can help us you know, get our passion across, you know, in a lot more ways. You know what I'm saying? And let's give it up for that incredible performance we saw Marco do. Hey, that was unbelievable, yo. You know what I mean? And it's a real testament to what's going on here. So I appreciate y'all for being forward thinkers.
We appreciate that too, man. Dready, I know Dready's about to get on a plane and do that probably.
But I was going to say, to add to that, I appreciate ROLI's inclusiveness of hip-hop. You know what I mean? A lot of technology, sometimes it goes, you know, they don't necessarily think about that hip-hop, you know. It's like, you know, I was having a conversation with a gentleman from Fender, and it was like, you know, yeah, guitars are used in hip-hop. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Yeah, so it's not, you know, it's just not just drum samples and so on and so forth. So I appreciate the inclusiveness of
course,
it, you know what I mean?
for sure, man. And Dready, I'll let you speak on it, but just because we've got to wrap up, I'm going to let you answer the final question first as well, is, you know, out of everything you've had, all the tech you've used, everything you've been doing live or in the studio, like, what for you is like the staple piece of technology that's just there still from day one, if anything?
Damn, I gotta answer that first. You know what? I have to say Creator. eMagic Creator, because that is Logic now, and that's what I still use. So that's been with me that's been with me all the way through. I remember using Creator on a Atari ST, was it? And then I had Notator. And then I think I took a break for like maybe 2 years. And I remember my dad calling me like, yo, you can record vocals into the fucking computer. And I'm like, what? And then it was just right back on it. So that's been the staple for me all the way till last night.
That's crazy.
You know, it's funny because you said till now. So if you're saying till now, I'd have to say the same thing because I started out early with it. But if I would say the first pivotal thing, I always have to shout this out because I bought my first house with it, is the MPC. Oh yeah. I always have to give a shout out to the MPC because I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for the MPC.
Blocks wouldn't exist.
Might not be here if it wasn't MPC. But Logic has definitely been early on. My first deal was actually with Teddy Riley, who used to have a room full of amazing equipment. And he was like, you can go use that, but you got to learn notator.
Yep, I'm similar. Definitely. My dad had a Lin 9000 back in the day, which was an early drum machine, and so I started fooling with that, and then I got an MPC, of course. You know what I mean? But I'll say before all that, for me personally, the technology that set it off is 2 sticks. You know what I'm saying? That's an easy technology. But you know, now in 2017, I mean, you know, you buy the new MPC-X, I'm inside of it. You feel me? So that's a crazy full circle thing for me. Me and my brothers in MVP, all in the MPC-X. So it's like it's a full circle thing because that's a very big part of learning hip-hop, learn how to make hip-hop is that MPC. But really back far is 2 sticks.
Give it a roll.
With me, something that stuck with me forever since the beginning and has got me to where I am today is the 808. It doesn't matter what program, but the 808, just that one, the 808, man. The 808 changed my life. Just
one
that
sound,
one simple thing. And really, I was like, if we can throw an 808 in that ROLI and mess with that somehow, because like for my generation, being from Atlanta, it's all about the 808, bro. Lil Jon and everybody instilled that in us.
I'm going to introduce you to Jack Parisi. That's Marco's brother.
The 808 changed my life.
So, what about you, DiViNCi?
I feel like an unfaithful person up here because there's not one piece of gear, at least in the studio, that I still use when I used when I started out. But I do have to give huge props to the MPC because I wouldn't have a career without that. You know, like that was my claim to fame for a really long time. That's how, because before there was like a finger drumming scene or controllerism scene, I was like a handful of people that was using that on stage, and then started using 3 of them on stage, and you know, got called like the Jimi Hendrix of the MPC and all that stuff, which I'm really appreciative of. And if it, so you know, that workflow and what I learned from working just with that for so many years, that's always going to be with me. And I think it's with a lot of people. You see it. You see that influence has grown into a bunch of other product lines. There's other companies that survived just off of that legacy. Yeah. That was started in that, and I'm thankful for that too. I mean, you can't get mad at that because, you know, a pioneer needs to exist. Hopefully that pioneer gets the credit they deserve while they're still around. And but that's eventually just going to lead to the whole marketplace, the whole community growing because of it. And
right.
I think that's what I'd have to say.
That's awesome, man. All right, well, I know that we got to get off stage soon. DiViNCi hopefully is going to be around later as well to play, so you're going to see some of that Hendrix on the MPC, or rather blocks today. And if you want to check out what Trevor was talking about, Marco's crazy show and his brother Jack Parisi, they're going to be up later too. But right now, I just want to say a massive thank you to Dready. We got Che, Trev, First, and DiViNCi for joining me on stage today. Technology and Hip Hop.